Namaskar, I am Dr. Nikita Naredi. On behalf of Amukare Charitable Trust and Mohanji Foundation, I welcome you all on the third session of disaster management. Disasters, whether natural or man made, we are all aware is inevitable. But how many of us are actually disaster aware or contribute towards disaster management? A disaster strikes a country, a shudder runs down our spine, we pull up our socks for a while. And either we contribute by giving away our discarded clothes or some fund when in the disaster relief. But is that our vision? No. As envisioned by our founder, mentor, and guide, Mohanji, who drew a roadmap for all of us, every one of us as responsible citizens need to contribute towards disaster management, starting from us, we volunteers, moving on to schools who are the future of the nation, the youth, and then go to corporate and industries. We all need to be disaster aware because it is happening day after day in our country or maybe globally. So we are having these sessions and to sensitize the environment on this pertinent topic. Disaster relief is also an indispensable and important aspect of disaster management, we are all aware. And when disaster strikes nationally, many organizations come up and contribute. But there is one organization which surfaces the maximum, and that is Gunj. It hits the headline. An NGO which has been working relentlessly for last 2.5 decades, spanning 25 states of our country, whether in disaster relief, humanitarian aid, or community development. And the most spectacular thing about Gunj is that they experiment and innovative ideas they execute for community development is very, very different. And today, to throw light on disaster relief and the human service Gunj is rendering to the society, we have amongst us none other than Mr. Anshu Gupta, the founder of Gunj, a social entrepreneur who left the realms of his comfortable corporate job and embarked on a journey to serve the humanity. Today, he'll be sharing his experiences with us, and maybe it will be of great help to us with an interactive session with us. Namaste, Anshuji. Uh, on behalf of Amukher, I welcome you and express my heartfelt gratitude for sparing your valuable time with us.
Thank you. Namaskar.
Uh, Before we actually go on to the hardcore of disaster, which is not a very comfortable topic, and most of us are aware of Gunj, but there would be many because we have a global community. If you could just give us in a nutshell what you as the spearheader of Gunj or your organization is doing so that we can get the ball rolling.
Okay. So, thank you to all and hello. Uh, I think we are in the business of, I think, changing the language and lenses. Fine. And cloth is a metaphor for us. So, whosoever knows us, they know us because of clothing. And, whenever you have something to spare, you don't want to wear anymore, you don't want to use anymore, you think Boonj is there. We are here for the last 22 years now. 98 informally we started, 99 formally we did. And I think one of the very important point for us was that there are unknown disasters, number one, which we don't even count as disasters. Also, we felt that poverty is actually an absolutely ongoing disaster. We need to consider that. And there are large number of issues which are largely non-issues, which don't even exist. And how Gunj started, we started very small with a small piece of cloth because we said that three basic needs of humankind, you say roti, kapda, makan, food, cloth and shelter, and then clothing you ignore. Okay? Cloth you actually remember when a disaster happened. So actually an area needs a flood to be flooded with clothes. Otherwise you don't understand that people actually need clothes. And when you say half the world does not get 2 meals a day or one third of the world, whatever number, fine, whatever number it is in billions. When you say they don't get food or 2 meals a day, hunger is a visible part. Hunger is something where we are talking about. What we all need to understand that a hungry person also does not have access to large number of things. Education, sanitation, water, to clothing or any kind of material thing. Our thing was very simple. We said that if earthquake is a disaster, flood is a disaster, how come winters are not a disaster? Why don't we have figures of people who die or suffer due to lack of clothing, right? And if it is a basic need, roti kapda makan, food, cloth and shelter, how come it is not a development subject? So simple what we do and how it started. One of the story goes back to my journalism days, and I was new to Delhi. Otherwise I come from Dehradun, and when I used to roam around on my scooter, I had seen red lights, so many red lights, first time in life, and then a lot of people come on the red light and ask for something, and as a student you don't have access to anything. You just say that what is this happening, but you don't have a solution. But the question was that why do people shiver? You know, I didn't understand the marketing angle of it. I didn't understand the compulsion angle of it. But winters used to bother somewhere because Delhi is pretty cold that way. And Delhi has, or all these big cities across the globe, actually a large number of homeless people. So one fine morning, I was roaming around in Old Delhi in search of my favorite thela or the street food, and also in search of good stories. And suddenly, I see a rickshaw, a tricycle kind of thing, where this Habib Bhai was running it, which I came to know obviously later, and his blind wife Amna ji was sitting there. It was a very beautiful, colorful picture in the midst of Delhi. And because I didn't have a zoom lens, I went next to the subject. And then in Hindi, it was written Delhi Police ka Lawaris Lash Uthane Wala, which means a person who picks up unclaimed, abandoned dead bodies for the local police. Right? And suddenly, a small incident or a picture became a story. I followed them, and then this morning till late evening, I used to be there, for many days with the family. Their very strange profession used to be to pick up unclaimed abandoned dead bodies for the local police. And for every dead body, they were paid 20 rupees and 2 meters of white cloth. I'm sorry, I'll disturb you all, but now that you have chosen the subject of disaster, I'm sure that you're conscious that all of you will be bothered, and disturbed in the subject. So when I started talking to that family, and because I used to have my food, breakfast, everything with them, uh, two statements came up. I'll speak in Hindi because they spoke in Hindi, and then I'll translate it. हबीब भाई सेट कि साहब जाड़ों में मेरा धंधा बढ़ जाता है, कभी कभी इतना काम होता है कि संभलता नहीं. That in winter my work goes up, and many times I have so much of work that I cannot handle it. And then I realized that in winters, in every 24 hours, in the range of 4 to 5 kilometers, Habib Bhai was actually picking up 10 to 12 dead bodies. Okay. And in the summers, it used to be 4 to 5. So like all here, I also thought that it is because of cold people are dying. But then years later, I realized that no, it is actually not cold, because if the cold kills people, even I would have died. I survived on my scooter at a speed of 50-60 kilometers, 10 p.m. in the night. I survived, but someone static on the road dies. It is actually not cold, it is cloth. It is a lack of clothing which is killing people. So people are not dying because of cold. They're dying because of lack of clothing. And then, Nikita, they had a little daughter, 5-6 year old little Bano, who is no more now, but she gave the most shocking statement. She actually said कि जब मुझे ठंड लगती है, तो मैं लाश के साथ चिपक कर सो जाती. When I feel cold, I hug the dead body and sleep. It does not trouble me. It does not turn around. As an urban educated person, my argument was dead bodies are cold, because I was not understanding the compulsion. I was still wearing my distorted lenses. I was not looking at the things from the lenses of people who are suffering that way. So that's how somewhere you realize that it's all about cloth. So we started with 67 units of clothing. Today we deal with more than 6,000 tons of material, not limited to cloth, utensil, footwear, whatever. And in nutshell, we do not promote charity because we strongly feel that charity kills dignity of people, and without dignity, you cannot talk about development. Charity should never sustain. One-off, it is fine. So a very beautiful model has come up, which is called Cloth for Work and now Dignity for Work, where we collect these 6,000 tons of cloth, utensil, footwear, old doors, windows, table, chair, everything and anything which is reusable. It goes through a very rigorous process of matching the need of the communities. Then in hundreds and thousands of villages every year, teams and partner institutions go. They pick up local work. So one institution want to work on one area needs water. They want to work on water bodies. Someone wants to work on road. So the communities really pay back in their wisdom and in their labor, and they're rewarded in kind. So it's the revival of the barter economy, and the development happens. So we have Aladdin Ka Chirag with us, and we literally work on water, sanitation, infrastructure, whole lot of other issues by using second-hand material as currency.
So was it Habib Bhai who changed your perspective? And how did this ignored subject bring cloth so close to your heart? So was it just that particular incident, or you felt that clothing is the ignored subject of our country? So I should pick up the cloth. So why did you? So how did you amalgamate all of them?
Habib Bhai was one incident, fine, and there were hundreds of stories earlier also before I wrote on him by large media institutions, right? So there were stories earlier, but I think many incidents happen in your life which ultimately maybe give you, as you say, darshan, the vision, right? So I think my darshan became kapda, my darshan became cloth, to the extent that even if someone is wearing a oversized cloth, I used to look at him or her, because somehow that's how I became crazy about it. And just in the same year, we had a massive earthquake in Uttarkashi, in Uttarakhand. And I was a student that time. So I just bunked my classes and went there. This was I was what? I was about 20, 21. And it was my first exposure to village India. It was my first exposure to the disasters. I'd never seen dead bodies like that. I'd never seen, distress or destruction uh, like that. And I still remember how, because in those days, in any case, disaster relief never used to be so organized. Now, at least in the last 3 decades, it has taken up as a subject. So a lot of material from the cities used to go. And as you also in your introduction said, large part of it used to be used cloth, which has no relevance in those areas, not at all, because it's not that disaster hit people need clothing only, or that to your cloth which you don't want anymore. Okay, I mean, not that they want that. So I still remember how from the trucks, the people used to throw clothing and all like that, and very proud people of the mountains, they used to take it, but they used to feel so bad. I've captured those expressions, because I used to I love photography, and I've captured those impressions also many times. So that was one thing which was making me sad that time, and I didn't know that this is a subject. I didn't know that this is a problem that way. And I also remember one person who was wearing a jacket made of jute gunny bags. Okay, because Uttarakhand grows a lot of potatoes. So वो बोरी का he was wearing that jute gunny bag jacket with a lot of patches. He had a chit in his hand, and he was asking again and again that give me a blanket, I'll die. Give me woolens, I'll die. And I was not able to relate, because I had never seen such cold. I never lived outside home, at least, without clothing and all. That night, and many, many more nights in that, Uttarkashi area, uh, because we went there without any preparation, just picked up a camera and went there. So we didn't have a space to sleep, and we were not prepared with sleeping bags and all that kind of stuff. So somehow we found a space, and I think those few nights taught me what is cold all about, and why this person was asking for blanket and woolens or whatever. I mean, I was like absolutely middle class student, had nothing to give. I mean, I didn't even have my money to survive in those mountains, that time, because I just born as a budding journalist, you can say. So a lot of these incidents kept happening, uh, but maybe I was only whatever was happening around cloth was an incident for me, nothing else, because I think that darshan happened somewhere.
So you came to be known as the clothing man of our country, and the story goes on. So what might, now that we are primarily want to focus on disaster, so most of your talks say that disaster relief should be need-based disaster relief. So when you say need-based disaster relief, because we also as an organization participate in it, but when you said need-based disaster relief, what do you want to entail? Like, what do you want to send the message?
So let me give you a couple of examples. Fine. So Odisha cyclone happened, and in Odisha cyclone, most important was gur and chana, okay, and the rice, because Odia people eat that, okay, and it was a waterborne disaster, so you had to airdrop, and when you airdrop, and there are other issues, so you airdrop certain things which people can immediately ready to eat food. Immediately after that, the other bigger disaster and the big disaster was Gujarat earthquake. Now, large number of people started sending gur and rice to Kutch. I'm sure many people from Kutch area must be there in this group, fine. How many people actually eat rice? How many people eat gur there? So you are doing it with absolutely pure intentions. Your intentions are good. You are spending your hard-earned money. You are a good human being, but you're not understanding what people need. Or if you talk about tsunami, so in tsunami, we took over government a lot of material which was lying undistributed in the government godown, especially the clothing after a proper MOU and all that. So this was almost about 80, 100 trucks of material which was not distributed, which went from all across the country, but it was not needed there. And you will not believe that while sorting that material, while sorting first 1 lakh units, we got about 1,300 monkey caps. Monkey caps which are needed for Kashmir or Ladakh, because your perception, your perception is that there is a disaster, people need clothes, people need woolens. Who on this earth, sitting in Chennai, especially, or in that kind of area, need a monkey cap to save oneself? So your intentions were pure, but you didn't do small homework. I mean, today the fact remains that when we go on a tour, on a family travel, or in a conference, first thing which we do is that we Google and find out what is the temperature. Even when Google never used to be there, we used to call up a friend to find out, what is the temperature, what should I bring, whether I should bring woolens or not. So how come disaster becomes an opportunity to give whatever we have and not what people need?
So how do we bridge this gap with the organization and where the disaster strikes?
So it's
Lot,
very important to understand what people eat, what people need. I will give you another simple example. This COVID thing happened, okay, and we operated pan India. Gunj reached out almost about 50 lakh kgs, 5 million kgs of ration itself in this area. Now, in the northern part of India, the chana dal is fine. But in the southern part of India, you need tur dal. Dal is same, and you are actually giving 5 kg of dal or 2 kg of dal. But if you just change it to tur dal, you know that that is the ingredient of sambar, and sambar is what people love and people eat. Just because someone is affected by disaster, overnight they cannot change their food habits. And like I travel, I come from northern India, and I know that when I travel to southern India, especially, I'm so desperate to have at least once arar ki dal with jeere ka tadka. That's equal to my 7 days of South Indian beautiful, with the meal which I love. But after 7 days, after 3 days, at least once I need my own dal, because this is what I've grown with. So what we all need to understand is that in any case, disaster takes away a lot from someone. Right? What we can do as institutions and as individual, we just match the need of people, that what exactly is needed right now. You must have seen so many times, so many villages, this message comes that village has got water, right? Because a tanker went there, and in the government data or in the normal data, water is reached. But the guy didn't have a jug to store water. The guy didn't have a bucket to store water. That's the need. Someone gives rice, 50 kg rice is gone. Someone gives dal, but a cooking pan is not there. So that's how we really have to see the gaps and make a comprehensive package so that every single thing which you're giving can be utilized. And that's the whole idea.
So it's not just about donation, anything. We need to do your homework as per the requirement of the terrain and the place.
Giving is when you give something which people need, not what we have, not at all. Okay, I'll give you another example of clothing, Nikita. You would see the urban India now. Okay, what Indian women is wearing is ladies jeans, t-shirt, top, suits. What large part of rural India still needs is a sari blouse petticoat or the traditional dress. If I talk about urban male like me, we all are 32, 34 to 40. Indian rural male is 26 to 30. It is size, shape, culture, geography, whole lot of other stuff. So you need to match what people wear. I mean, you can say that lady suit, where do I give it? Mountains are there. But in the mountains, you cannot send your lady suit to Kashmir. Because in Kashmir, they will wear a suit which has sleeves like this till this point, not till this point. So that's the culture, that's the religion, that's the tradition which we need to honor.
So continuing on your disaster relief aspect, because it's actually very eye-opening for even us, because we need to do that homework. So you say that it's not just a one-time disaster relief. You say that you need to sustain in a disaster relief. So again, what does sustaining means? We generally give one time and we feel that we have done our job, any organization. So again, so what is sustaining a disaster relief?
Someone has lost something which 3 generations collected or added. Okay. And we the people think by 10 giving 10 kg rice, we have done enough. How does it operate? That's my very simple basic question. Even if you give a say 15 kg rice, which very few people give, right? I mean, I have not seen many institutions or individual who think that 25 kg is an okay material to give. I'm saying even if you give 25 kg to the family, for how many days will it last? Right? It relief needs to sustain till the time person start at least earning something. Otherwise, the person will still survive, but that person will get into the hands of the loan sharks, where where the opportunity cost is much higher, and people actually give loan at much higher price. Go to Amphan area, go to Nisarga area, and find out the cost of bamboo and the wood right now, which is much higher because of the disasters, because of cyclones, the wood or the bamboo is not there, right? In any case, the dry grass is not there, and then there is opportunity cost in the greed of people of the lalas in that area. So it's very important to understand the need of the family. Very important other part. Uh, in disaster, never ever treat individual as receiver. Treat a family, and that to a larger family, as the receiver, because in disasters family unite. If for paper's sake, a son and his wife will stay separately, because the funny schemes which come, and they say first two people will get 800 rupees, third will get 400 rupees, so they separate and they make another hut or something, right? That's one part. But otherwise disaster brings people together. Disaster bring people to the safer places, and suddenly the size of the family really becomes big. If we are giving, I saw some very eminent people and other people also, in Bihar floods, I remember how some people were going and giving away half a kg of chivda or 250 grams of chivda. You are not understanding that that person is actually risking his or her life, coming in water with in snakes with a bamboo, and in the sea of the water where you don't even know what is there, below you, whether it is a pit, or it's a well, or it's a normal farming land. So you are for coming for relief. Every time you come for relief, you're risking your life, and then you are taking away half a kg of chivda or 250 grams of chana. People will still take it, but that's such a big disgrace.
So one vision which is really beautiful about Goonj, and which you already said, that you try to dignity and charity, they don't go together. They are two parts of a coin. So how do you amalgamate the two, that, as you said, that we should not feel great when we donate? So how do we send this message to the masses?
So donation word itself needs to change. Beneficiary word needs to change. Right? I mean, so ways couple of simple thing I'll tell you. Okay. Say you gave 10 kg rice post COVID to whom? To a farmer. We feel good about it. Certainly, we should feel good about it. But I'm wondering that how come that farmer is a beneficiary? We have been beneficiary of his farming outcome for last many decades and centuries. We have never paid that person what he deserves or what she deserves. So by giving 10 kg or by returning 10 kg rice to our farmer, I call that person a beneficiary and I forget that I am the biggest beneficiary on this earth.
Correct.
1998, when I was leaving Escorts, okay, and this Goonj Kida happened, I did a small calculation and I'll share it with all of you, and maybe that will change the definition of donor and beneficiary forever for some people. So I said the beautiful institution where I studied called Indian Institute of Mass Communications, and I was there for 2 years. I did my journalism and then I did my advertising and PR, and the fees used to be a few thousand rupees in those days. I said the kind of campus I had, the faculty, the facilities in those days also, ideally the fees should have been 50,000 rupees or 1 lakh rupees, even in those days. Then I asked about say from thinking about my beautiful middle class family, and said that if that fees was even 30, 40,000 rupees, was it possible for my parents to afford? The answer came no. So that was an honest calculation. That was the day when I realized that I am the biggest product of subsidy of the country. Every single person on this earth, and especially in this country, who has ever gone to a government school, college, any university, including the private institution where the land was given at throwaway price, and that's how the fees was a little bit subsidized, has eaten up the subsidy of this country. And when the COVID happened, and I started writing something called Covidi, a series of poetry started coming up. I also thought that actually this subsidy is given by the farmers, by the daily wages. You know, this is government never gives any subsidy, fine. Subsidy is given by the last person who is not paid for his or her full-time work. So if I am a product of subsidy, if every single person who has gone to IIT, IIM, and any other good institute or university is a part of the subsidy, and I'm saying subsidy is my right, but then I also need to understand that that's a karja on me, I need to pay back. Will I still call myself donor? And in any case, if I am giving away my second-hand material, with what right do I call myself a donor? I'm discarding it. I'm giving it because I don't need it. I need to be thankful to the people who are using my second-hand material, because they are the keeper of my emotions. They are the keeper of something, my hard work, my hard-earned money, something which I don't like in my wardrobe. They're smiling on that. They are giving me happiness. So who is the beneficiary? I'm still confused.
So
They are not, I'm sure.
sorry. So this thought process we need to inculcate in the youth. So basically, you get a lot of interns. We have a lot of volunteers. So how do are you able to spread this message when students or young volunteers come to you? Because we it's not our understanding. Probably the masses need to understand this. Then only we can change the thought process about this beneficiary or donor or charity. So how can we make this message more to the masses?
Okay, first is that we should, at a certain point, we should stop worrying about the youth. Okay, we are putting so much of burden on them. And people like us who are 35, 40, 45, 50, we are happy with all kind of nonsense on our WhatsApps and choosing some, dirty channels and watching those and discussing all kind of nasty subjects right now and putting and expecting everything from the youth of this country. what we will do in the families, the youth will take that up. A very simple thing, again, I'm giving you a very simple example. Large number of families in this country, and I'm not talking about other countries, let's talk about this country right now. When we get up from the dining table, often the common sentence which I have heard, in many lunches and dinners, we often say कि ये रख दो XYZ खा लेगी. Please keep it, XYZ will eat it, which is your house help. Now, you're 4 years old, you're 8 years old, is grown with this upbringing. When this person grows and become a youth, do not expect a different behavior. If you are sitting at home and you are absolutely fine with all kind of violence, or you are the court, you do the judgment and you say it is justified, it is not justified, do not expect better things from your children. It is we who need to be much more careful in what we are talking, what we are observing, what we are teaching, because whole lot of people learn by what we do. My institution, if I practice dishonesty, if I practice something wrong, I should not expect good thing from my team, whether it is youth or it is whatever age group. So I believe that the larger responsibility is of the people who are 45, 50 and all, where youth are our kids, instead of putting everything on youth. And we need to talk upfront. We need to talk head on. We need to, if we want a change in the society, if we want a change in the behavior of the society, we need to start, with ourselves first. What I am giving, if I am not giving right thing, why am I expecting other people to do that? And COVID response, and exactly this month, last year, and part of April, was a big thappad and tamacha on large number of people, because that showed us that we didn't build a society which has mutual trust, mutual faith. Otherwise, how come people just get up and start walking for 800 kilometers, 1000 kilometers? And that's a question where all of us need to really answer. That was a disaster where the suffering happened because large number of people didn't participate, in stopping them. Large number of people participated. That's how large number of people survived also. It's not that a lot of people did absolutely wonderful job.
Because that is the time even when the younger volunteers also came in and they started.
Everyone. I mean, and it was very encouraging because the same virus, which was, such a big thing for large number of powerful people, the ordinary citizens were of all age group were taking all kind of risk without a PPE kit. They were cooking, they were, standing with people.
So basically, to have an organization of your caliber, what is very important, because you cannot span the 25 states, you cannot go to so many houses and so many villages. You need a very strong volunteer network. So to garner volunteers, how do you motivate volunteers so that they work for you? Is it again some particular model, or it is their innate thing to volunteer? How do you go about it?
So I would say remain honest and upfront and transparent. Interact with people and value what people bring to the table. Fine. I mean, we are not here just to impose our agendas, in that process. Give that space to people to do that. And also do not go on that over recognition. I think that's one of the worst trend which has taken up. Large number of people are promoting these things. They do this thing and take a selfie, put it on Facebook, and other people will get motivated. I mean, do I need someone to, if so, that means that person is actually motivated by a selfie. How does it operate? Doing good is a collective responsibility. All of us need to do that. And that impact of that work, which is visible, or even if it is not visible, but the satisfaction that I have done something good, that itself is good enough to motivate it. It needs to be very silent. So if you see in Goon's story, we are not putting big banners. You wouldn't have seen anywhere. we are not going to media and saying that talk about us, because right from the beginning, we told everyone that there are two ways of working. One is that you talk about the work. The other is that work talks about you. Now, the second approach is time taking, right? It will take a lot of time. You need a lot of patience. You need perseverance for that. But it will be a better approach because you will, in the journey, you will make hundreds of mistakes and you will learn by that. And also, volunteers, if you're talking about volunteers, that does not mean that they are here to do the jobs which you don't want to do, or make PPTs and all. Share the real life stories with them. There are enough people who want to do good and who are looking for opportunities. I mean, that's what in the last 2 decades we have seen in the journey. And many of them then ultimately became full-time team members also. Today we are almost 1,000 plus team, formal team, you can say, all across the country.
Like you go to the deeper villages and we see that ponds are constructed, bridges are constructed. So especially in our villages, sometimes the commoner feels afraid of a person coming from the city, or they want to do something with the city. They feel that my village is going to get messed up. So how do we approach a common villager when we want to do something for the village? They might understand subsequently, but the first step which we take, how do you do about that?
Most honest people actually live in the villages of India. Most accommodating, most giving people live in the villages of India. It is very unfortunate that whenever we talk about volunteerism, we just think of people who are wearing some city clothes and who can speak a couple of languages. We always think that they are the volunteers. Although the large part of the volunteerism actually happen in the villages, where hundreds of these events happen and people just do this selflessly, and that culture is still maintained. People still give their wisdom, give their labor, give everything. They also give mutti bhar anaj to cook food together. Now we work in large, I mean, very different areas in terms of geography, language, culture, religion, from tribal to the village or to a whole lot of other communities. I think one thing which we have learned is that it's all about language, what you speak. I have, I have, I am here to solve your problem, or you need to talk about your own issues and then solve it, and I will stand with you. There's a difference. You need to solve the problem of water, and solution is a well, versus there is a problem of water, as you are saying. Tell us what is the solution, because my family and I don't know how to do what. Because in my city, the water comes in the tap and then there is a water problem. But I don't know what is the problem in the village and how can it be solved. So like if I talk about myself, my earlier family, which this statement I give hundreds of time, 100 times, yeah, that's full of IITians. So people say that from Roorkee Engineering College itself, which is IIT Roorkee now, there are about some 22 pass outs in my last generation. And I can tell you, and no IITian should be offended on this, but that's the truth. No IITian knows how to dig a well. No IITians know how to make a chachri or a net of bamboo, right? But villagers in Assam and in Bihar and in Odisha and in many other parts uh, do not need a concrete bridge right now. They need it, but we know it cannot happen. So they need someone who knows how to make a bridge out of bamboo. And that's the local people who know. I don't know at all. So if I just say that I will stand with you, you have to do it. You will do it.
It's big encouragement.
That's where the magic happens. The biggest problem is, in this country especially, that farmers who have come out, or farming, whatever you say, who have come out with 200, 100 different varieties of rice and pulses, hundreds of variety of rajma itself, who can add two different variety of mango, the kalams, and create a third variety of mango. They're still called unskilled, right? And the people who do research on this, people like me and you, we are the skilled people, So people should consult us about rice. not the farmer there. That's the problem. You bring the same person to the city, give that person a week-long electrician ka training, and start calling that person skilled. But for the last 3 generations, that person is feeding us and growing different varieties of rice.
They call them unskilled.
And we call them unskilled. So if we do not leave this arrogance, we will never be able to make, the community a part of us. Never.
So we have to become a part of them so that they develop a faith in us.
Eat with them, sleep with them. One of the things which we practice in Goon, and this is what I always used to tell the team, and we still practice, that if you go from 9 to 5, what you understand is the practical part, the official part. But if you remain from 6 to 6 or 6 to 9, you understand the emotional part.
That
And
is
you have
very
to understand the emotional part of the area or the people to work strongly with them. So there are places where we must have worked 6-7 years back, but they still call us Hamari company, our company. And I think, and that too when we don't put banners, that too when we don't wear Goonj t-shirts.
So it is not always important to showcase.
Never important to showcase. The work should speak. The relationship should speak. They should not give you, they should not offer you Nariyal Pani just because you are from an agency or you're doing to do good. Nariyal Pani to you should be offered because you're there to sit with them. There should not be any chair for me. I need to sit there.
With them.
That's it. Because you also need to understand that all of us need to be thankful to those people. Fine. I go to my neighbor, want to know something about the neighbor. He doesn't tell me or she doesn't tell me. That although that person is a neighbor, for the last 20 years I'm staying or we are staying together. You go to these people, they open everything about themselves. They offer you, their village, their food, their home, their mat, their water, their coconut water, and they open up their heart and give you the stories which you come and then start talking to the world and say, oh, this is the problem we have solved. This person was going through such tough phase and I've solved that problem. And then we start speaking and talking all these, glorify stories. But that person gave me a chance to really, or scope to get into him or her, or in her or his life. How many people really give that? How many people are so giving?
Correct. So now coming back to disaster, like you have been to so many disaster relief areas yourself. Have you ever been part of any disaster management team also per se, where you have, or that was not your forte per se, just for our knowledge?
Disaster management team, in the sense, obviously you are connected with people, fine. But personally, I see disaster as an opportunity to uh, get into the ground zero, because people like us also have a problem and a risk that the number of standing ovation and awards and clappings we get, it can go any time here, and that day you are gone forever. So disaster gives you an opportunity to see that people who have it, they lose it. जिसके पास होता है वो खोता है, that way. And you also see that how disaster really does not differentiate between the caste, community, geography, rich, poor, everyone. Although the relief and the response really matters a lot, because disaster might be an equalizer, but not the disaster response, unfortunately. The powerful people, again, remain powerful in that. The upper caste remain upper caste in that. The politicians remain, the businessmen remain businessmen. I mean, there are a lot of dynamics of that. So I think so it brings you to ground zero. It also gives you an opportunity to restart a lot of things. So many offices of Goonj and many chapters of Goonj happened because of disasters. Because we went there, we had no presence there, like recently in Kerala or in Tamil Nadu, and we have very vibrant chapters there now. We started from scratch. right from looking for a space to looking for people to all kind of management. We do become part of some of the meetings and all that, but after a certain point, we stop going because we feel that this is the time when you have to really respond directly. So there will be some people who are doing a good job in terms of discussion because that is also needed. There are some people who will do the rescue part. This is good for them because if I go, I can even, I cannot even swim in a
Yeah.
small swimming pool. So that's not my forte. That's not my expertise. So
Very
I
well.
would rather focus on something which we know, which we have been learning, because that's where that will be the optimum utilization of our strength instead of getting into everything. Also, typically in most of the disaster, uh, we enter on the seventh or the eighth day. I mean, we are there in the field, but actual large scale work start happening that time because within 10 days or 12 days, mostly the media attention is over. The negative news start coming. Lot of, the religion based organization, lot of political organizations also move out after the immediate relief. That's where we enter in a big way and try to do whatever little we can.
You've spoken very beautifully about the 4 Ds of disaster in one of your talks. If you could just tell our volunteers and our members also those 4 Ds, they were very nice.
If you can repeat, because there are a lot of Ds. There was a complete session on disaster, and I just spoke on large number of Ds. But
About
yeah, if you can
what
tell
a
me.
about the disaster per se. So you had really spoken very nicely. So I thought if you could just
So listen, some of the things which are very important, and it will cover those Ds also. There are three parameters which make disaster a disaster, and those are very unfortunate parameters. One is number of deaths. So more people die, people think it's a bigger disaster. And my point is that in any case, the human being like us can only work for the people who are still living. So the number of deaths should not be a parameter of it. So like if you see today's all the cyclones in Odisha, which happen, very frequently, the deaths are very less because people are prepared, the government is prepared, the centers are there, the very, very nice evacuation happened before that. And everywhere the headline is 2 million people evacuated, 1 million people evacuated, whatever, right? So the deaths are not there. But can we imagine the immense suffering? Can we imagine that when these millions of people went back, they didn't have a house, they didn't have a hut, they didn't have their utensils, they didn't have their field. Everywhere it was salty water all across the places. They didn't have their livestock, they didn't have their animals that way because we couldn't save them. And the support didn't reach them from the NGOs, from the corporates, from a whole lot of other institutions because the headlines were no one died. And we are not understanding that it is the suffering of living being. It's not the suffering of a dead body.
disaster is not equal to only death.
Absolutely. The second thing is that when the media says it's a disaster, it's a disaster. Otherwise, it is not. How can we give a useless logic every year that is fine? Assam, it happens every year. Bihar, it happens every year. Do we understand that if it happens every year because of the kind of games we play with the nature or the infrastructure building and all that, people are suffering every year. Whatever they somehow they start their life again in the month of August or September, they again go back to zero in the month of June or July. I mean, I remember in Morigaon, I was traveling in the earlier days, and how people before sleeping in a hut, they used to put all their utensils and whatever little belongings in a chunni or a sari and used to hang it from the roof of that hut because they knew, and every night it used to happen, because they knew that water will come. How much water will come, they don't know, but the water will come. So every night they used to pack that and then sleep.
So that was their disaster preparedness.
That was their disaster preparedness. But what we need to understand that it's not about media, right? So Mumbai flood is a flood, but Bihar flood is not a flood. How does it operate? Right? And the third unfortunate part is that When the disaster affects a city, it's a flood, it's a disaster. So even if you go back to Kerala flood, although it had affected a large part of Kerala 2018 or whatever, but when the Kochi airport was closed, it was a flood. So we actually have to really listen to the community, listen to our partners, our people who live in these cities, and we do not have to trust the media and all that. For maybe for media it's not a news, but people who are suffering there, it is a news. And disaster, when you're talking about D, the most important part of the disaster is dignity. Stop calling people victim. Stop calling people beneficiaries. They are suffering. So do not take pictures. I mean, I remember in many areas when some volunteers go and they try to clean the house. Now they want to click a picture with that lady of owner of the house or whosoever. And I'm wondering why. Why do you need that picture? That person never thought in life that a disaster will happen. Disaster is no more a subject of north or east, which whole lot of us used to think. If you pick up last 10 years, 15 years post tsunami, large part and the biggest possible disasters have happened in south also. The Kerala floods, the Andhra cyclones, the Tamil Nadu floods, whole lot of these in every state. So very important to really take care of the dignity of people, because disaster takes away a lot from people, which whole lot of us put together can never give away, can never give back to them. Because often the relief becomes a much bigger disaster than the disaster itself. The way we operate, the way we want to give, the way we want to click the pictures. I mean, you give a sanitary pad packet to a woman post disaster who does not have a close place, in any case, now a lady, you want to click a picture. And when you go to the market and buy a ultra thin sanitary pad for yourself, you ask for a black polythene. How does it operate?
So quite paradoxical it is, and probably we don't comprehend such things when we are going out on thing. So basically, then what are your bottlenecks which you have faced during this COVID Rahat, and overall, where you felt that these are the bottlenecks which any organization, yours has caused a paradigm shift as far as the relief operations are concerned. But nevertheless, even you must have faced some bottlenecks. So as a message to us, where you feel that these are the areas where we need to work on.
Take risk, trust people. Fine. I mean, enough of that due diligence kind of stuff. We go to all these super bazaars, buy all kind of rotten material, and we have no courage to say anything that way. Okay, but especially in the disasters, you really have to open up yourself and don't get into all these reports that people have enough, people got enough. But fine, if one person got ration twice, how does that matter? You only gave for 10 days, now that person has for 20 days. But 21st day, that person in any case need ration again, and you only gave dal chawal. The person still need masalas, the person still needs lot of other stuff that way. So that's what I'm saying, that trust people like anything. Be ready that 5%, 10% people will not do justice to your trust, but count on remaining 90%. So the negative should not become a story. Logic is always for not doing something. Doers never look for a logic. They say, okay, fine, especially in disasters. If we have to do, we have to do. And in the COVID kind of disaster, you also have to, like we had to change a lot of our models. Something which you have so beautifully made in last 20 years, the entire field visit report, the due diligence, the hub and spoke model. It was very complicated for the team, and I'm so thankful to my team that they listened to this mad person and they somehow agreed. And they said, okay, fine, let's just do it. And then they started also experimenting and doing locally. It was not just me. I was just sitting, and in any case, I went through COVID myself in that phase itself. So they never wanted to trouble me, in any case. So we actually broke a whole lot of systems which we created. Rato Raat, overnight, we changed our processes, lot of voucher system. We said we will procure from the local people, work on their bills and vouchers, give them a model that this is how your bill should look like, because they've never sold more than 100 kg in one go, and now we are talking in quintals and tons from them. We also went to the local farmers, so almost 2.5 lakh kgs of vegetables we purchased. We said, why are we just insisting that relief kit should have dal, pulses? I mean, in any case, pulses are grown by the farmer. We polish and sell it back to them in any case at a much higher price. We only polish that, right? So, can the vegetable become a substitute of those pulses? Because in Kolar in Karnataka, farmers were forced to sell tomato for 50 paisa a kg. In Bihar, farmers were selling, green chili for 4 rupees a kg, 400 rupees for a quintal. Can you imagine? Because there was no buyer. So we said, can we just procure locally, and the rice and other stuff will go from other places, but a local vegetable kit will be made, and farmers and the vegetable and the people in the area will be given those vegetable kits. So I think bottlenecks were there. Logistics was a bottleneck. Transport, in any case, was a big bottleneck. Stores didn't have enough material to procure that way. This was first time which we never anticipated in our life, that we knew that we have created a grid in the country, as I say, laying the pipeline of relationships, knowing people, logistics, and all. But we never anticipated, thought that a day will come when we have to put the entire pipeline, on and then we have to use the entire pipeline. We never thought that. But this was an opportunity for us where we use the entire pipeline across the country, and that's how we did. We trusted people. We worked on the photocopies of the bills, online thing of the bill. Uh, we said, okay, fine, whatever happens, happens. Tomorrow, if even if someone comes and say you have done wrong, our intentions were pure. It's very simple, and we made sure that all the processes are followed, but not immediately. These can be followed after 15 days, because sustenance will only happen when you survive. And why are we worrying about so much about sustenance? I mean, so for us, first important part was survival. So we changed a lot of strategy. So what in nutshell I'm saying, Nikita, that many times you have to let it
Change.
go. Something which you love, the processes and systems which you as a team, day and night you worked on that and created, and you are very emotionally also attached, and you know that it is practically very nice. You just have to let it go, throw that
Just
in
let
the dustbin, and see the situation, and see that what new you have to create, and how in the present scenario you have to create. We will not take signature at all. How can we take signature? On one part you're saying 6 feet away, and on the other part you're saying come to the
come and
same
get.
register and signature and sign. How does it operate?
So, if any of our volunteers would want to ask anything from Anshuji, uh, if they have any question in their mind, because we are also into volunteering. Our models are different, but we were really impressed by your model, and we thought that maybe our volunteers would be really very, very benefited. So, if anyone wants to ask any question,
But
Can I?
the yeah, yeah, but
sorry.
just to respond on your thing, you actually need to be different, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, this entire talk that all of us should work in one way and all, it does not solve problem like that, right? There are 100 different kind of problem and 100 different kind of solutions we all need. So we should not talk about either or. We should only talk about and. Keep learning from each other and keep working on your model. Why should I adopt someone else's model? Because the world needs different models, and you don't know what will become successful.
scenarios are different everywhere. So,
Why not? I mean, if the telecom companies cannot work on the same model, why do they? Why do or the mithai walas are not making same kind of mithai? Why do they expect that all the NGOs should work in the same way? We are also human beings. We all have our different approaches, and also we are dealing with different communities, different situations. So the approaches need to be different. Yeah, there was a question. Sorry.
Harmeet, you were asking a
So,
question.
Anshuji, I wanted to ask, we know that you have done a lot of work, during the disaster of COVID. So, wanted to, ask you, in one of your talks, you mentioned that it will be decentralization that will work now, right? So, could you please tell us a little bit about that and throw some light on this thing?
Okay. So in COVID phase, what was the bottleneck? The bottleneck was that you can't have a lot of people together. Bottleneck was a lot of stores didn't have enough material.
Correct.
Bottleneck was also how do you pack and how do you transport, most importantly.
Hmm.
So the hub and spoke model, the way we used to do in all the disasters, we used to create hub. Like if you go to and the entire Uttarakhand disaster which we handle, we created a hub in Rishikesh, a real big one, a few thousand square feet of area, where the entire material from all across the country used to come. And then there was a proper processing which used to create local packages, all that kind of thing, and it used to go.
Okay.
We have those hubs already in various places. But when you are working pan India and the transportation is a bigger issue,
Hmm.
and we cannot open our Delhi center with 300 people, you know,
Hmm.
or 200 people as usual, because we have to maintain that 6 feet, 8 feet, and a lot of people are also have other kind of medical issues, so we can't call them also for work. We said that can we start purchasing locally? The local organization hub, the local organization also start packing material locally. So we will have guidelines. We
Hmm.
will say that you will not pack less than 15 kg of whatever.
Hmm.
One kit should always have this. So please make sure that you, when you're giving rice, you give this also, that also, whatever. And of course, these are not non-negotiables. If something is not available, if one item is not available, that does not mean that the kit will not go, because at least other items will work. So that's how we absolutely localize. We said that you buy local from the local Lala. We cannot transfer the money in the account of that institution because we don't know that institution. But we can certainly send the money to the Lala directly, to the shopkeeper directly.
Wow.
So I mean, so as I'm saying that we did take a lot of risk, you know, and I will not say that all these risks were 100% calculated, because you are moving to the unknown territories, right? But at the end of the day, you have to trust people also, na? I mean,
Hmm.
why do we think that we are the only honest people in this earth? There are millions of honest people, and they want to do good,
Yeah.
and they are your hands, they are actually extending what you want to do, so you need to be thankful to them for taking this. And if two or three people do not keep our trust, how does
Hmm.
that matter? I'm saying I will go back to those 97% people who we went absolutely, community wise, we started doing it,
Yeah.
and they did their best. And they're also, now that, in the last couple of months, I've traveled extensively in Bihar, Jharkhand, and Odisha, at least three states,
Hmm.
and met a lot of these people, and the kind of love, now
Hmm.
people have, because you were just standing with people
Yeah.
at that particular time, and those were unknown people. Those were not our work areas. These were absolutely unknown new territories for us. We'd
Actually,
never
that
gone in those areas.
it's so beautiful, Anshuji, because with this, I get to know how you guys get into the roots of everything, and how you really reach out to people so extensively. So thankful.
I'll give you one more example. So, lot of 17th of March we closed a lot of offices, right?
Yeah.
And we asked everyone to go back to their parents and girlfriend and boyfriend, wherever you want to go and feel comfortable, right? In this tough phase. So a lot of people, you know, shifted to their natives and all that. Can you imagine that every single person of Gunj
Hmm.
who was staying with his or her parents in his or her city,
Yeah.
who had never done a field work also, many of them had never done the field work that way,
Hmm.
the money was transferred in their accounts,
Hmm.
and thousands of kits to the families have actually gone through these people who were learning from their people, their team members who have been the masters of the field, and they were handling accounts here earlier, or
Hmm.
or the project management or whatever, or communication, but they didn't know how to handle fields. So they were
Hmm.
learning from those people, and then reaching out to, in the range of 50, 60 kilometers, taking local permissions, meeting SDMs, getting the curfew, those passes,
Hmm.
using local vehicles, and the amount of that beautiful work is done by these volunteers, many of those, the team members, the community people who had never done a field job that way. But this was a time. So when you are saying the local part, I
Mm,
think for us, I think that was a kick. That
yeah.
and for many of the team members also that was a kick. I mean, they really enjoyed that work. That in their area, no one knew them that way, because वो आ गए अपना देख, they've come to Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, but now they know कि okay, Sharma ji ka beta, is
Oh,
doing
wow.
them.
Beautiful.
The other thing which we really want to say, Anju, that your ethos, where you have written in one of your blogs, that when we sleep every day, we need to ponder upon that whatever we are getting from the world, is it a debt which we need to pay, or it is our 100% right what we are getting? Exactly it was from our founder, from our mentor, and that is what we have inculcated, that give back to the world. So your ethos, it was really very beautiful that although our models are different, but definitely the principle and the ethos are same, that we need to feel that we have to give back to the world, not keep taking. Either it is whether it is earth or the world. So it was really beautiful. And before I end, just on a lighter note, uh, what I really liked about is you say कि मैं गुस्सा होना चाहता हूँ कुछ बातों पे. That makes me work. So how do you do that? How do we tell कि नहीं हम भी गुस्सा होए ताकि हमें भी किक मिले कुछ बदलने के लिए? So it
तो
is very nice how you said.
नहीं, गुस्सा गुस्सा इन द सेंस कि मतलब यदि if you stop worrying, if you stop getting angry on certain things, so the dirty road or the dirty nala should always bother me. Often what happens, and this is my most common example, that most of the Golgappa people, the Pani Puri people, I mean, I'm because too fond of it, the street food, and Pani Puri is something almost every city where I've traveled, I have tasted that way. Most of these Pani Puri people are also many times in the areas where you have a nala or a drainage system somewhere, and near that you have that street food, including Pani Puri and many other food. You must have seen many times. It happens in India because these are footpaths. So I often tell people that you come back, right? You remember the taste of the water and the smell of that water, which you have taken with the Golgappa, but you forget the dirty nali there. No, it needs to make me angry. The injustice needs to make me angry. When I see a person shivering on the road, needs to make me angry. That anger is extremely important, and I'm not doing something wrong with that anger. That anger gives me a little bit of sleepless night and something to do tomorrow.
Yeah.
But if I accept the status quo and I say ये तो होता ही है, एटलीस्ट हम तो कुछ अच्छा कर रहे हैं, आई स्टॉप, आई किल माई सेल्फ दैट डे, दैट्स इट. बिकॉज फिर तो मेरा कोई एस्पिरेशन, कोई ड्रीम है नहीं ना. मैं तो बहुत किस्मत वाला हूँ कि मेरा कोई सपना है. मैं और ज्यादा किस्मत वाला हूँ कि मैं सपने पे काम कर पा रहा हूँ. मैं उससे भी ज्यादा किस्मत वाला हूँ कि मेरा सपना सही डायरेक्शन में है, एटलीस्ट कुछ हो तो रहा है. बट सपना पूरा तो नहीं होगा ना होगा ना होना चाहिए, क्योंकि रोज बड़ा होना चाहिए, नहीं तो सपने का क्या फायदा.
So we don't need to lead a mundane life.
No, this is one life, and come what may, मतलब we have to live, we have to. I mean, मैं बहुत लोगों को लेक्चर्स में जाके ये बोलता हूँ कि ये जो हाथ है इसके दो हिस्से हैं ना, ये कर्म है और ये किस्मत है. ये चलते रहेंगे तो बदलती रहेगी.
क्या बात है.
बस.
Anshu ji, Nirupma ji wants to say something.
जी.
Anshuji, I'm really thankful to Gunj, and because I closely worked with them in Jammu.
अच्छा, okay.
And we were really fortunate that we could help many laborers there by providing them rations. And the best part we could do was providing them Safai Karamcharis. We were able to provide them with the gloves, heavy duty gloves, because at that time they were the most prone people and they were facing the health hazards. And that really helped our area to get cleaned and they were happy to work. So I'm really thankful to you.
Not at all. And I think what COVID has taught us, and I hope that more people learn this, that anything which we ignored worked. So all the fanciest airports were closed, but all the ignored bus stands were becoming the shelters for people.
And your
That's-
people were working selflessly. Especially the young volunteers, they were not caring about themselves, and they were just a one phone call away.
Thank you. Thank you.
So
Thank you.
thank you so much, Anshuji. And I just want to, before I end, I really want to thank you from our organization, Amokare Charitable Trust and Mohanji Foundation, for sparing your valuable time, giving us such beautiful inputs and your model. And as wherever I could read, you've always written that you're always ready to share. Even when you went for your Nobel Prize of Asia, there also you said that I'm ready to share my model with the whole world. Very few people would be so magnanimous to do that, and it was really impressive. And thank you so much. And even we believe in the same ethos that if we do a good work, it expands us. That is what our mentor Mohanji has inculcated in us, and we also intend to be useful to the society. And thank you so much once again. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank
All
you.
the best. All the best.
Can we have a big round of applause for Anshuji, please?
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.